Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I am your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, dude?
Doing pretty good, man. Not as exciting Monday night game as last week, but still having fun watching it, and always fun being on here.
Yeah. See, I don't love this game. We talked about this before. It's just the defenses are playing well, and I like me a good defensive battle, but I feel like this is more a product of Geno Smith and Jameis Winston being.
It's a mixture of good defense and some inefficiency.
Yeah, I hear you there. All right. Well, we're here to talk about everything Week 7 of the NFL. We'll go through some injuries, highlights, lowlights, and then walk you through the waiver wire wish list as we do every Monday night. First of all, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you guys tune into all of the shows this week. Just a quick update. The college football cut is on hold this week. They're not going to have a show. However, the coach approach will be live on Wednesday, and DFS deep dive will be back on Friday as usual. So make sure you guys check those out. We did okay ranking this week, so make sure you guys hit up the website, cutffb.com/rankings throughout the week. Anything to add, Randy?
My Alvin Kamara's possibly RB1 takes looking pretty good.
Yeah, he's having a heck of a game. He actually won me 2 matchups that I had a 1% chance of winning, so I'm feeling good about that.
It's not the way I called necessarily, but at least fully. But I'll take it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm excited to see what this offense looks like with Michael Thomas back, if he ever does return, which he might not. All right. Week 7 fallout. We start with the bad stuff, and then we come around to the good stuff, and then we go back to the bad stuff. So it's a nice steady flow. But injuries this week. So Miles Sanders sprained his ankle. Doesn't look to be too serious. Seems like a low ankle sprain from everything I was reading. We're going to touch on this player, but there's no reason to bury the lead. We've talked about Kenneth Gainwell about 72 times on this show since the season started. Randy, what do you think this means for Gainwell for the next couple of weeks at least?
Well, let's say the next week, because I did love this injury's already been described as the everyday sidewalk injury. It's like you stepped off the sidewalk and rolled your ankle, where it looks incredibly painful, but it really isn't. Didn't even do anything to you. So there's a good chance he, precautionary-wise, sits a week out. But this offense and coaching staff did seem to want to run the ball finally and not beat an RPO. That was Sirianni's excuse as to why they hadn't run the ball as well as Jalen Hurts. He just refused to give the ball up. It's like, well, I feel like that's probably 50-50, but whatever. But it does suck for Sanders because he was looking really good. And then Gainwell looked really good as well. And I'll say Boston Scott as well. But Gainwell will, at least if Sanders is out, if they continue that kind of offense, will have a good week against the Lions. I mean, that's why Gainwell, if you expect Sanders to be out, which I kind of do, is probably the top waiver ad.
Yeah, and we'll get to all that. But like I said, guys, so we told you to pick Gainwell up weeks ago, and part of our justification was he's one of the higher value handcuff players too. Well, now he's still available in a ton of leagues, and like I said, we'll talk about him a little bit more later, but I mean, he should be on your roster. If he's sitting on your waivers, he should be on your roster. So more injuries. Zach Wilson, PCL injury. Some debate about if the hit was dirty from the Patriots. I didn't really think it was, to be honest, but
I didn't. But
you're a Patriots fan. I'm not. So, but the Jets fans are the ones that are screaming that They should have called it, which maybe for just
Now,
low hitting the legs, but he was an active runner at the time, so I don't.
yeah.
It's tough, but he is out 2 to 4 weeks. They did just trade for Joe Flacco. Do you have any interest in Flacco and Superflex at least?
Superflex, like 14-16 team, yeah.
Yeah.
Or 32 team Twitter Invitational League, yeah, definitely. But
I'm spending all of my waiver money on that.
that's what everyone does.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so Zach Wilson, it sucks. I will say, that was a product of him getting outside of the pocket. The second one was just him not feeling the pressure, which we've seen the rookie quarterbacks doing a lot. They just don't feel pressure coming from the edge. So he'll be fine when he comes back. Stop panicking. Oh, and Zach Wilson 2.0 got hurt too. Patrick Mahomes, I made a joke that because everyone made joke or the comp was Patrick Mahomes for Zach Wilson. Now the joke is that Patrick Mahomes is actually Zach Wilson. I wrote in here he passed concussion protocol somehow. He could have went back in that game. I don't believe you, Andy Reid, or Chiefs training staff, because I mean that was one of the worst looking concussions that I've seen in a while. What did you think of that, Randy?
Yeah, it looked devastating. However, I will say sometimes it's the ones that don't look devastating that end up being really bad, and vice versa, where the devastating ones, you're fine. It's kind of a, especially with concussions, it's kind of just a toss-up situation. But, however, I do think he didn't pass it, or at least he didn't fully pass it. Maybe pulled the old high school trick of, oh, well, I only got 5 of the 20 right on my test. Now when I get a concussion, I'll get 4, and they'll be like, well, he's probably fine.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I think even if it's close or he thinks he did, or he did pass it, I think this was said quickly so they don't get asked about it 20 times.
Yeah. And he was already said to be, oh my God, Jameis Winston's fighting with people on my television. He's just screaming at people. Patrick Mahomes is said to be playing this week. So I wouldn't worry too much about this. Don't go pick up Chad Henne. I will say, I don't know that Patrick Mahomes playing is a great thing right now. That offense is not gelling and is not clicking. He's still a QB1. You're still starting him in fantasy, of course. But I think we might be entering the range of let's temper those expectations and kind of expect lower QB1 performances. Randy, are you along the same lines? Do you think that he's going to turn this turnover spell around?
I've been ranking him mid-tier QB1 for the last couple of weeks. I think as well I'll continue to rank him because he does have explosive upside. But the floor just isn't there right now. And again, I know, like, I understand your Twitter's jokes and people coming after you from before, and you're just joking back at them now after some correctness has shown. But for those that aren't, just so we're clear, Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the league. It's this offense, at least talent-wise, just like how Rodgers was for a while the best quarterback in the league talent-wise, just didn't matter because Brady was better. Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the league right now. The difference is this offense just isn't working together. The line is doing all right. I think they honestly looked best the week that Clyde Edwards-Helaire had over 100 yards rushing because they didn't have to have Mahomes throw 50 times for 450 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, why does that have to be the outcome for you to be able to beat good teams is my point. You should be a balanced offense. Again, I know Clyde's out right now and you don't trust Williams to that extent except at the goal line. However, you got to figure it the fuck out. You're a Super Bowl winning coach and a Super Bowl. You just went to the Super Bowl again. Like, this is a team that shouldn't be having this much struggles offensively when the only person that's out for your offense is a running back you didn't use except for a week and a half.
Yeah, I do want to note, because I did see this, and I think it is noteworthy, Patrick Mahomes' turnover-worthy play number has actually gone down this year as opposed to the last 2 years, which when you look at his turnovers, you say, how is that even possible? Well, a lot of his turnovers have been non-turnover worthy. We've seen a few drops that have led to picks. We have seen some boneheaded plays where he's just trying to do too much. But I will say overall, the supporting cast around him, people kind of laughed off Sammy Watkins leaving, but I think that actually has impacted this offense more than they would be willing to admit. Byron Pringle is currently their wide receiver 2. That is really not ideal. I think Josh Gordon eventually might get up to speed, but then by then he'll probably be back in rehab. So
he's not that. Honestly, they should be seeking to trade right now for wide receiver. I think that would help them immensely. I understand they are kind of hard pressed for cap. I understand they're not necessarily hard pressed for draft capital though, so you probably could figure something out.
I think
they need a number 2 go-to guy. The last few weeks they've tried to make that McCole Hardman. He's had some mixed results, but besides being fed targets, he hasn't really done much. And to that extent, Dante Pettis has done that the last 2 weeks. He's been fed targets and he's been okay. So I really don't say that's a good thing for McCole Hardman. I think they should be looking to get better elsewhere to give some attention off of Hill and Kelsey because that's really what's hurting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, but he is playing this week, Patrick Mahomes. So that's the good news there.
Thankfully, because that could have been a much worse injury. I'm very glad he's not hurt.
I was a little scared watching it. I mean, it looked bad. Yeah. His neck snapped back. So
no, he literally accidentally, obviously, but he literally got running knee in the
face. Yeah,
that ended up like being a full-fledged whiplash effect. Like this could have been much worse.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next one. Josh Jacobs left the game. Knee, ankle, can't remember. Didn't write it. The reason I can't remember though, I thought it was his knee. The reason I can't remember is because they said he'll be fine. They have the bye this week, and so he'll be fine moving into his next game. And so it's not really that noteworthy, other than the fact that Kenyon Drake outscored Josh Jacobs. That probably won't happen when Josh Jacobs is fully healthy because it was close.
I was going to say, he kind of barely did. Like, Jacobs still had a really good start to the game. Yeah. He looked very good. This offense is clicking, which is ridiculous because they were clicking, then they looked terrible, and now they're clicking again. Yeah. I don't see how he misses the game with the bye week, but if he does, I would say I don't even think you pick up Kenny Drake, but I guess you would, because you could argue that the reason Peyton Barber had a decent game with getting all those carries was because of Gruden. And when Gruden wasn't there, they're like, well, we have this guy that now the other guys are, we're just going to use him.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe hope maybe this week you try to trade Kenny Drake. Like, well, Jacobs got hurt.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that they're actually using Kenyon Drake now. That's for sure. But
they've been using him the whole time. It's just they haven't, like, the running game hasn't been ultra efficient to start the year. That's the difference.
Yeah. Jonnu Smith, we added to this injury report here. He left with a shoulder injury. There's really no update on this yet. That's the Belichick way. We'll get an update later this week. So
it just sucks because he was having by far the best game of his season. And with almost 9 minutes left in the second quarter, he hurt his shoulder on like a catch play or something. Like, it wasn't like an obvious injury on the field. And then we're just like, oh, Jonnu's gone. Well, Hunter Henry caught a 1-yard touchdown, I guess. I'll let the streak continue. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. We're about to talk about the rest of that game here in a second. So we'll leave it at that. All right. Now, those were like the main offensive injuries. We'll keep you posted. Yeah, we'll keep you posted if something else happens tonight, but it shouldn't at this point. All right, let's go to the highlights. The first highlight I have here are the Bengals. The entire Cincinnati Bengals team, they absolutely routed the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, which I think is actually super significant. They are atop the AFC right now. They have the best record in the AFC. I kind of didn't shun them, but like I pushed them off as frauds because I didn't think that the way they were running their offense was sustainable, and I didn't think that their defense would continue playing at a top 5 level. Both of those things have happened. Randy, what are your initial, like, what's your reaction to them just absolutely manhandling what I would argue is the second best team in the AFC?
A very good team win. I think that's the best way to put it. The defense has looked good this year. We knew that. There was reservations going to this game for obvious reasons. The Ravens been stellar. Burrow's looked good. He's the early slump that we expected and predicted has been gone through. His receiving core is healthy. They're all working well together. He's got a tight end that's actually catching a ball now. The running backs look good. It's just all coming together right now. However, it's still a tough division. They still don't have the easiest schedule. I believe of us two, I gave them 7 or 8 wins, and I was by far the highest of us two. And I still think that's realistic that they only get 7 or 8 wins. I do think let's be honest, the last couple of weeks they play as a playoff caliber team. I'm not disputing that, but that doesn't mean you get in the playoffs necessarily. They've also been given the luck of a lot of big kind of broken plays, as we just saw there with Ozama, as we saw with Jamar Chase this week and most weeks. And it's just like we talked about with Mahomes, where he hasn't had like terrible plays that have caused interceptions this year. He has more interceptions because of a little bit of bad luck. And prior years, he had worse decision making and worse throwing, and he didn't have all those picks. Well, it was luck. It's simple. It's obviously skill and talent, but it's also luck. And I think a lot of good things have bounced the Bengals' way. I think that continues. However, again, this is quite possibly the hardest division in football.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, they have the most difficult schedule remaining, I believe, of all the NFL teams, which we always knew that they had a tough back half of their schedule. I will say, I made jokes about Joe Burrow. Guys, I mean, Joe Burrow was good in this game, but like Randy said, a lot of broken plays. And if you go look at like his actual, I know completion percentage isn't super indicative of really anything, but he was like one of the worst quarterbacks in adjusted completion percentage in this game. I believe he was like 6th worst in the entire league this week. There were times that he looked every bit of special. And then there were times where, we saw some of the concern. Burrow's going to get better, which I think should put the AFC North teams on notice. I think really what this game did for me was say, okay, maybe the Steelers are a little better because I know the Bengals kind of gave it to them as well. I just think that this team, if they're going to be successful, they need their defense to continue playing in the way that it has. I do think it's sustainable at this point. I didn't think that Uwuzie was going to become this awesome corner for them immediately, and he was great in this game. And they were able to hold Lamar to, 17 points, but 15 for 31 for 257 and just 1 touchdown. Yeah, he added 88 yards on the ground by himself, but like this is the way you beat the Ravens, and the Bengals executed a great game plan. It was awesome.
Yep.
All right. Next thing, I alluded to this, but the Patriots offense is finally clicking. The Patriots team as a whole, yes, they were playing the Jets. The defense was always going to succeed in this game. We kind of knew that. But this Patriots offense was incredibly impressive, in my opinion. I've made jokes about Mac Jones, too. I think he is starting to look a little better. I think they're finally opening up the offense for him a little bit. He's got 3 straight weeks of an average depth of target over 7.5 yards. He might have been at 7.4 this week, but somewhere around there, which is a lot better than the 5 and 6 that we were seeing before. Just they condensed the field. He's starting to run the offense that we know the Patriots want to run, and that showed when they put up 54 points on the New York Jets this week. Mac Jones, 24 for 36, 307, 2 touchdowns. He also added 19 yards on the ground, dual threat, baby. But this was just a manhandling. I don't know how to feel about this Patriots team. I feel like they're going to be that tough They're fighting until the very last snap, which we kind of saw against the Bucks. What do you think this team is? Is this a borderline playoff team to you, Randy?
Yeah. But I thought that coming into the season,
Yeah,
this is exactly how I expected them to play, with Damian Harris leading the way with a great on the ground. Obviously, Bolden through the air, I don't think that's something we can count on every week, especially with Ramondre kind of taking away all of Bolden's snaps for the last couple weeks. So don't go pick up Brandon Bolden. That's what I'm kind of getting at there. But this game was dominated on the ground with good play through the air by tight ends, by all the receivers. Jacoby Myers wasn't dominating the target share this week. They spread it out well. I mean, obviously, Jacoby Myers is just the best receiver of that room, but getting help the way he did with Borden and Aguilar and the two tight ends and Bolden and Harris to some extent was huge. And I think that's how they win. With a go-to guy in Myers and with the red zone threats of the tight ends and Harris on the ground, and just Harris and Ramondre dominating the ground and letting Mac Jones, who is a rookie, he's not going to look that good. Like we've been spoiled by great rookies of the past year or two. He's looking as good as he should. I think that's the biggest thing. And I know Mav absolutely despises your Jared Goff comparison, but what a lot of people forget after the last couple of years now is the Super Bowl run of Goff. He looked great, and he looked great because Todd Gurley looked great, and his offensive line looked great, and he was dumping it efficiently to all his receivers and tight ends. Everything looked great.
Yep.
No, we were talking about how this could be a dynasty, and Goff, while he isn't spectacular, could be the franchise quarterback of the future of the Rams. It hasn't played out that way. I don't expect that to be the trajectory of Mac Jones, but it's not a terrible thing to compare, at least for the first year or 2 or 3 of his career, Mac Jones being that version of Jared Goff.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily a ceiling, but if it is, it's not the worst thing in the world either, especially with the Patriots and how they like to form their teams.
Right. But I guess my question, I was actually going to ask this. What do you think Mac's ceiling is? Because someone mentioned me on Twitter today and said Mac looks pretty good. Look at this PFF grade. Yeah, I mean, I think this is close to Mac's final form, personally. Like, I think he can get better at throwing deep, but I guess my perception of what his ceiling would be, and I don't even know if this is better than Jared Goff in that season, but Andy Dalton for the Bengals, that like 4-year period where he was fringe, like top 14, 15, like in the eyes of NFL quarterbacks, but with an AJ Green, like I don't know.
See, it's just a different type of quarterback as well, with Andy Dalton being a big arm quarterback, Red Rocket, obviously.
Right.
Like that's not Mac Jones. That's not his style. It's not his game plan. So in that regard, I mean, like he's continually that entire group will continually be. It's Baker, it's Kirk, it's unfortunately it's all white guys, but it's it's that mid tier where they're not giving you 50 yards on the ground, and their team is efficient. They have good running games, and they're not putting up 6 touchdowns a game or even 4 or 3 to that extent. They'll have those games, and they're going to have their QB1 weeks, but they're going to be rotational pieces at that quarterback 1 slot. I think that's his upside.
Yeah. I also will say, I've been critical of Mac because of his inability to push the ball downfield. I still think that's the case, but a safe quarterback is exactly what this team wants, is someone who takes care of the football. He's executing the game plan. If he has to throw the ball to win games, I do still have my reservations on that. Like, I don't think he can put the team on his back right now. No. And he might eventually, but just not yet. He's a rookie.
And again, like that whole, who's better? That's like we talked about on Twitter yesterday or today. I honestly don't even remember at this point. But like, that doesn't matter to start your career. Like, obviously, like we said, Derek Carr's clearly better than Burrow. Burrow had a great game. I don't understand why that's an argument, but Carr's a better quarterback because he's done this, and he's got a better arm, and he's very talented as well, and he has a team that's already built around him, whereas Burrow still has to figure out the full build of the team, or not Burrow, the Bengals. It's I don't understand why it's like I mean, the guy that's been around for 6 years, why would we say he's better? It's like, well, okay.
He should be better. That's the thing. That was just a weird off-season thing where I asked who was better, Derek Carr or Joe Burrow, and then I was just scrolling through some of my old tweets and saw that, and I thought that was funny. And still true today. Burrow will probably be better next year, but we'll see.
There's a chance. I mean,
Yeah. Speaking of that quarterback for Las Vegas, Derek Carr, outstanding performance. He had 3 incompletions in this football game. One of them was an interception, of course, which is super unfortunate. But he went 31 of 34 for 323 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's pretty much what he added. I find that stat line to be kind of shocking simply because Henry Ruggs didn't do much at all. And so that high yardage total normally is accompanied by Henry Ruggs having a big day. Well, this was just Derek Carr carving up this Eagles secondary. I need to frame this correctly. Is this version of Derek Carr better than the borderline MVP broken leg Derek Carr from whenever that year was?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think there's a couple factors in that. Experience, obviously, as we've gone over. Trusting the deep ball a little bit more, I think, is a big factor. I think that year the line was better. So the fact that he's performing this level with this line is another give up to this year. And the receiving core is much, much worse than it was that year. Obviously, they didn't have a Waller at that time, but they had Crabtree and Cooper, who were ridiculous at that point. They don't have anywhere near that kind of talent, even if you add Waller to the receiving room, which they didn't this week. But even if you add him, you could get rid of one of those guys, and maybe the rest of the receivers add up to the other one, you know. I would say he's a little bit better. It just comes with the territory. I think he's comfortable. And that's the biggest thing. I don't think I've seen him feel comfortable up until middle of last year, really. Even in that MVP caliber year. He was killing it, but he's still, should I throw it to Murray more? But he's dropping it a couple times. So Crabtree wants the ball in the red zone. Should I throw it to, he's second guessing. Now it's just like, I know what I'm doing. Fuck it.
Yeah, he just throws the open guy, which is exactly what you want out of your quarterback. Follow-up question. If this version of Derek Carr is better than the MVP caliber year, do you think Derek Carr belongs in the MVP discussion right now, assuming that the Raiders continue their winning success?
I think he does. I don't think he has – I would have to double-check that, but I don't think he has the same stats as that season, and that's kind of what the MVP discussion is going to be more heavily relied on, the stats. I just think purely as a quarterback and how he's playing better. The stats may be a little bit different, though.
Yeah, I think he's more decisive now, like we alluded to, and I think that
has been his career biggest problem.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't throw the deep ball early in his career. That's because he did somewhat, and then it didn't work, and he's like, I don't know. And now he's just completely out of his head, and he's playing his brand of football and what works best for him and the Raiders, and it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it's great. Raiders outlook moving forward. Do you think this the John Gruden stuff lit a fire? Do you think that this is going to be a consistent? Let's beat the crap out of teams.
I won't go there yet. I think this is the best outcome coming out of such a terrible situation. And what I was hoping for and somewhat predicted to an extent, I think this team has rallied behind Carr and his leadership. And that's not even with Carr. Carr didn't do anything like go out and just decimate Gruden to the media or something. He actually did the exact opposite, was still condemning what happened. So good on him. That's good for him. It's still a terrible situation for everyone involved. The correct outcome. And I'm very happy that the Raiders have kind of gone past all that gone with their locker room leaders and are just moving forward. If I believe they can continue to play like this, but the way they've been winning the last couple of weeks, I don't think you could say they could continue that. It's just they've been killing it. I mean, just pure and simple blowing it out of the water on offense. The front four, the defense has been consistent. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, I will say the secondaries played a little better than I thought they would. But that front four
they've
helps.
Been injured for 3 weeks.
Yeah, man, when Ngakoue can just freaking pin his ears back, dude, and go, like, he's one of the better pass rushers in the NFL, and he's not even the best pass rusher on his team. And
no,
that's how you win in the NFL, guys. We talked about it last week. I've talked about it a lot lately. You get 2 great pass rushers at least. Get some guys that can penetrate the interior, rush 4, drop 7, and you make lives harder.
Speed everywhere else.
Yep, exactly. All right, that'll do it for the good things. So back to the bad things. And we're going to start with the Bears offense. And the reason I wanted to start here is because I had a tweet catch Bears Twitter today. Justin Fields played poorly yesterday. And the stat line will say that he played like the worst quarterback in the NFL. And I, maybe because a lot of teams were on bye and there was a limited sample size, but Justin Fields is not as bad as your fantasy football friends are going to make him out to be. He has been pressured under 2.5 seconds far too often. He isn't just holding onto the ball like people are saying, and he is making reads. He is not that bad. It sucks when your 3rd and 4th string right tackle come in the game against Shaq Barrett. It's impossible. I tweeted out before the game, I am going to wince every time this ball is snapped because Nagy and company are going to get this kid killed. Sure enough, they didn't provide any chip help to the right tackle. The craziest part is that they go heavy personnel so often, but they split their freaking tight ends out wide instead of having them help in pass pro, which is very, very necessary. Khalil Herbert doesn't belong in this low light. Khalil Herbert is one of like 3 or 4 running backs to go for over 100 yards against the Bucs defense in the last like 2.5 years. Impressive. Had a good game. Outside of that, I mean, wipe this away. With rookies, don't wipe it away completely, but with rookies, the progress isn't always linear. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. This was a down game. I expect Justin Fields to bounce back as long as he doesn't have COVID, because the whole team has COVID now. So, Randy, what were your thoughts on this game? It was kind of hard to watch for me.
It was very hard to watch. I was very thankful that the Raiders were playing at the same time frame because I was flipping back and forth, and after a while, it was very easy to switch to a different game to flip back and forth to. And it's the outcome we expected. It's just the beatdown mentality of it. And again, I don't see how. It's kind of calling yourself out if you say stuff like, "Well, he's just holding on the ball too long," especially in that game. Because if you watch it at all, there was even in just the first quarter, there was like 5 times where he had 2 seconds to throw the ball. Like, what do you expect? And that was with interior pressure getting there as well. Like, it doesn't have to get the sack, but Vita Vea and Sue are pushing the guards and centers 2 yards into his face. Like, it's just, it was like you said, you were wincing. I couldn't watch it. It was literally like,
I was nervous he was going to get hurt, dude. Like, honestly, like,
I made the joke to my dad that it was like at a certain point, this is getting to the equivalent of the longest yard after Adam Sandler's character throws the game, where he comes back in and the line's just like, fuck him. If he dies, he dies. Like, it was just like, dude, please. And like you said, I was counting. I was like, oh, there's 2 tight ends in the field. Thank God. Like, I counted in the huddle. Then they're both out wide. I was like, what do we do?
Or they put him on Jason Peters.
They're getting there in 2 seconds with 4 people. Like,
Yeah.
You have to chip. I don't care if it's not in your scheme for the fucking week. Adapt, dumbass. That's how coaching works.
It's so frustrating to watch. And Justin Fields, there were people in my mentions today saying that Justin Fields didn't act like a leader. Then you're telling me you didn't watch his press conference or even read what he said in his press conference. The kid is mentally tough. He's going to bounce back from it. I have no qualms. A lot of people are saying that he's bad and he's destined to fail. Congrats on being wrong. I don't think that's going to happen. So
it was a lose-lose situation for him. He had no chance out there, and then he gets condemned for that. If he would have screamed at his guys, he would have been condemned as a terrible leader and possibly a terrible person, or other words that we will get into. Just media words that are thrown around way too often for wrong situations. And then him sitting back and being the quiet leader that he is, where he'll talk to his guys. He takes responsibility for his actions, and he's always trying to move forward. I mean, we saw him be a leader for 3 years at Ohio State. It's just it's obvious that you just don't pay attention to what's going on. You just want to fit a narrative, which has been a kind of a huge thing in sports in America for the last few years.
Yeah. And I will say it's not only Justin Fields that's getting that treatment. It's Zach Wilson. It was Trevor Lawrence for a few weeks. But it's always been heightened for Justin Fields because there's a lot of things. I mean, Ohio State, you've got the Bears curse on quarter. Like everything is working against him. He's not that bad, guys. I suggest going to Nate Tice's Twitter page. He had a great thread of things where he's just making fun of all of the takes. It will enlighten you. It actually opened my eyes a little bit. We can't talk about Justin Fields anymore. Oh, great. Another quarterback that the narrative is just out of control. Tua Tagovailoa. Guys, we're talking about Tua as if he started 72 games and this is what he is, and his team has given up on him, and it doesn't make sense. Tua has had 14 games as an NFL quarterback, a year removed from a hip injury, and he went out and just threw freaking dimes all over the field this week. Tua's final stat line I had pulled up and I closed.
I got you. 27. Oh no, it's 32 of 40 for 291, 4 touchdowns and 2 picks, along with 29 yards on the ground.
Yep.
And he, before this game, and I assume after this game, is the quarterback 2 on the week.
Yeah. Yeah. So for fantasy football, he's doing well. For real life, you'll see the one interception and you'll say, what was Tua thinking?
I will say that's back-to-back weeks on that, but
so
the point.
No, the first interception, the red zone interception, where Smythe didn't break. He didn't break the correct route. The scrambling one where he was about to get sacked and he just chucked it up. That was terrible. That was a terrible decision.
That's what I was talking about. Along with throwing to one Dolphin amongst 6 like Jaguars and throwing to like the Jaguars somehow. It was weird.
It was not good.
The guy running the wrong route, there's nothing you can do about that. That's happened to every quarterback at every level.
Yeah. And then Tua, we talk about leadership. Tua said, that's on me. No, it wasn't, Tua. You don't have to lie to everyone, but good leadership.
Well, it isn't. It isn't.
Yeah. I mean, he threw with anticipation. It's stuff you'd like to see, but then when it happens in real life, you get upset because he threw a pick. But Tua's good, guys. He's not that bad. His offensive line has it's very similar to Fields, where like they didn't build a good team around him. Hopefully he gets his receivers back soon.
It's the same thing. It's what I feel will probably be the downfall of the Bengals this year if it happens. It's the same thing where their line isn't good at all either. Yeah. And again, Jamar Chase played incredible. Waddle played incredible. It still isn't the best football pick to go with those guys over the top tier linemen, but it'll work out. It's just one of those things. You basically set back your team a year to then jumpstart a year. It's weird. It's a weird way to build your team, and generally doesn't work. That's the big issue. The worst thing with Tua is I think we're getting to a point where Miami fans are out here like, well, we know he's not bad, but he's been injured and all that blah blah blah. And at a certain point, they're almost trying to fit it's in their minds and in their speech that, well, it's fine that we're trading for Watson. Like it's fine we're getting rid of Tua. Like he hasn't been that good. Like he should be much better. That's why we drafted him there. And you're just trying to fit like so it works out that you're not making a bad move. Yeah. And we all know it's probably a bad move.
Yeah. Not only that, that's just your window to win is on the rookie quarterback deal. So build a team around the rookie quarterback, and then you basically have a couple-year window. And I mean, look at the Chiefs, which decent segue. Chiefs are in trouble, in my opinion, if that defense does not step up. We talked about Mahomes' struggles and the wide receiver struggles already, but that defense is one of the worst, if not the worst, in the NFL. And just in terms of
what I was going to say, with one lone bright spot, but
yeah. And so I guess my question for you, Randy, are the Chiefs going to miss the playoffs?
I would still say no.
Okay.
I mean, just because and we've seen this with other really good teams. Sometimes they just underperform for the first batch of the year. They get it back together at the end of the season. They should with the coaching staff that they fucking have. They should figure it out in the offense, especially. I have a sneaking and afraid feeling that this struggle right now will be yet another year why Eric Bieniemy isn't hired as a head coach, which is wrong. But I think it'll get blamed on him instead of Andy Reid when the success only goes to Reid, not to him. Just saying. I mean, let's be fair.
That's really stupid.
But the defense has been very terrible. I think Chris Jones has been ineffective because they've been moving him around a lot because they want to use his immense talent in every aspect they see best fit for the situation. It's just not working out as of right now. And again, it's a guy trying to play 4 different positions on the line at the same time. But when he was just working interior, he was quite possibly the best D tackle in football, only behind Aaron Donald, who also plays all 4 positions.
Except effectively.
Effectively, yeah. And we've seen Jones be effectively. It's just not a consistent efficiency like we see with Donald, yet at least. The only good bright spot of this isn't Tyrann Mathieu, who is only his best claim to fame in the last few weeks is standing around with his arms open, blaming everyone else. It's actually Bolton, who we argued about at the draft process. However, the reasons I loved him is what's showing out. The reasons that you did not love him are also showing out because he is being taken out a good, I would say, 40 to 50% on third down or obvious passing downs. There's like, someone else with a little bit better coverage. But that's the thing. Like when you are that aggressive and that disruptive and against a guy like Derrick Henry, even if you just figure out a little bit better in the passing game, you will be elite. There's no question. He has been the only bright spot of the many games I've watched of the Chiefs because it's the Chiefs and they're on national television every week. And I have Sunday ticket, but so I guess that's probably not a good reasoning. But either way, he has been killing it. And then you have 1 week of Clyde Edwards-Helaire killing it. You have 1 week of Hill killing it. You have 1 week of Kelsey killing it with some consistent games the rest of the time. He's been kind of the bright spot. But even the line hasn't been incredible. Like the rest of the receivers are dog shit. And Mahomes hasn't been perfect. And he's not throwing for 450 and 5 each game. So they can't just get bailed out by him doing that.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that rush 4 drop 7, that has been Bud Dupree was able to land. Harold Landry was able to land. Like that's how you get to Mahomes. The Browns tried it week 1. It didn't work because their zone was shit. But they were getting pressure on him. And if you pressure Mahomes, if you pressure any quarterback, they're going to be worse, even if they're elite. Like Herbert is like the one guy that breaks that trend, and that's not sustainable either, in my opinion. So I don't know.
Well, Yeah, and a lot of his are dumping it to Eckler, or dumping it to Allen Short, or just tossing it up deep to Williams, and Williams be like, "I'll go get it, or I'll die. I don't care."
He does do that. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I guess my hot take is that if the Chiefs don't turn it all around very, very quickly, I think they could miss the playoffs, which
Yeah, and you add in that. I mean, both of us, I think, only had the Chiefs making it from the AFC West with in the playoffs in our predictions, with the other three being very fucking close and killing each other basically to not get in.
yeah,
Uh, and I think the Broncos have lost all the steam, I would say.
yeah,
However,
they're toast.
the Raiders and Chargers have not, and
Yeah,
from all accounts, will not. So there's a good chance they don't win their division right now. Missing the playoffs, however, I won't get to that point because I think even if they lose the division, it'll be very, very close.
yeah. I think we're gonna see 6 teams from the North and the West and the AFC in the playoffs. 3 from the North, 3 from the West, probably.
I would
Um,
agree
yeah.
with Titans and Bills. Yeah. It's definitely not. I wouldn't say Patriots over Bills, so it's gonna be the Bills.
It's kind of closer than I thought it would be, yeah, but Bills are still very good. All right, last low light before we get into the waiver wire. I just want to talk about Robbie Anderson and how he got 9 targets, 3 receptions. Yeah, guys, like I said last week, targets don't get fantasy points. If you're in a point per target league, then he's
This
doing
is like
great.
3 or 4 weeks of it too, where he's gotten like 7 and 10 targets, and he's only had like 3 catches. 2 weeks ago, it was Drop City. That was the reasoning, but the team played bad, especially on offense. It's a game they should have won. It's the game or at least had the Giants have to beat them and play really, like, not that the Giants didn't play well, all credit to them. It's just this, it was a case of a team playing pretty good in the Giants, I would say, and then a team of basically just handing it over. It was really strange. Yet another game that I just like, well, not watching that shit.
Oh yeah, and I was watching Red Zone because this was my first week to actually sit and watch, and they kept going to this game, and it was disgusting. And so I had to turn on one of the actual games, which probably better for me. But yeah, Darnold is currently grading worse than 2 of his New York Jets seasons, which is not great.
And that's with a good start, like a really good start.
Yeah, a great first 3 games. It's rough right now. I think that Joe Brady's team might be faltering as well. So,
yep.
All right, let's get into the waiver wire wish list. Remember, guys, these players might not be on your waiver wire. Most of these guys will be, like, without a doubt. The guys that you can pick up off of waivers this week. Not household names for sure. No Austin Eckler's here. But the first guy I want to talk about, and it was his. Oh, go ahead.
Quickly.
Yeah.
I think this has kind of been a running theme of the last couple weeks. Do not, in a just pure waiver league, blow your top priority. Do not blow a lot of fab. These guys are not worth it.
Yes.
They are definitely worth consideration playing this week and or in the future. They are not worth that spending what you've been saving for.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, but the first guy had a pretty good performance for the Atlanta Falcons, and that is Russell Gage. He's only rostered in 28% of sleeper redraft leagues right now. 6 targets, 4 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. This was his first game back since week 2. In his last 2 games that he's played, he has combined for 13 targets, 9 catches, and over 90 yards, 95 yards to be exact. So pretty good sample size within this offense. And that 7 target game against Tampa Bay, that was before Matt Ryan really hit his stride, and he's been a lot better within that offense. So, Randy, are you interested in Russell Gage? They get the Panthers this week, so almost like Dante Pettis scored 15. Russell Gage can, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I have my big concerns with this Falcons team. they have guys. Cordero Patterson has been great this year. Ridley has been getting targeted heavily and yet isn't getting the result. I think we're going to get the same thing with Gage, as he's probably going to get 5 to 8 targets every game. And unless he gets to the end zone, we're not going to give a shit. The only one now that's playing well is Pitts, and that's really just a 1.5 week sample size, maybe 2 weeks, if you count it like that. I don't know what to think with this team yet, because as you said, Ryan's been playing better, but he also isn't efficient right now. He's stat wise playing better, but I don't love it. So it's just one of those if I need a wide receiver that I think I'm going to need to play this week, I think I would pick him up over all the receivers here. Maybe you know what? Actually, probably the next guy I'd probably pick up over him.
Okay,
for a 1 week thing.
That's good to know. And I will say too, the Matt Ryan stuff. I mean, he's gotten some pretty cake matchups too.
Yes.
But that won't end for a little while. So I think the receivers could benefit a little bit. But the next guy that you alluded to, Allen Lazard, rostered in 11% of Sleeper redraft leagues. All of those are going to come from Sleeper, just so you know. Last 2 weeks combined, 11 targets, 8 catches, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The more positive note is that, so at the beginning of the season, I believe he had a preseason injury, so he was working his way back a little bit. Only in the 60s for the first 3 weeks in terms of snap percentage. These last 4 weeks, 79, 86, 85, 91. This was his highest snap count. This seems to be the target too, even over the running backs at this point. I feel like Rodgers finally has a wide receiver 2 he can trust. Do you agree with that?
I don't know about the full I can trust thing, but I think he's trying to put his trust into him now. Tunyon looked better this game, mainly because he got more looks. And I think that'll also be a thing on Thursday with Devontae Adams. All but out. I don't think he's actually fully out, but it's the same thing with Goddard when they played on Thursday night, where Monday he tested positive for COVID, and it's like, well, he's probably out. And then he was out because it's just, with the hoops you have to jump through to get back, you need a full 2-3 days. So at best case, you won't hear anything about Adams until probably Thursday, or he doesn't test negative Tuesday, and they're like, or Wednesday, that is. And they're just like, well, he's done till next week. I think with Adams out, Lazard will be the top target of this team. I think in the Thursday night DFS or on Thrive, a line on MVS might be something that I'm looking into because of a deep shot. Tunyon, I think I would look into. Running backs as well, but the last 2 weeks has outperformed everyone, not named Devontae Adams, obviously.
Right.
He's looked good doing it. So I think there's some trust there. He's a flyer most weeks I would take, but because of the Adams news, I think he's probably the top receiver to take for a 1 week rental type situation with possible upside for the rest of the season.
Easy on that 1 week. So the Arizona this week, obviously Thursday, Kansas City the next week. So you've got at least 2 weeks from him.
But I said with possible upside. This trend continues. I'm just saying he probably scores the most of these wide receivers this week.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in on that. Next guy, Khalif Raymond, 7% rostered. Now, you guys might be saying, I'm not picking up Khalif Raymond. And that's what I said until I looked at the target share over the last couple of weeks. The last 2 weeks combined, shout out that.
That's right.
That's absurd.
I thought for a fact, just knowing you as a friend, that you're going to be like, and you might be thinking, I'm getting arrested. No, Khalif Raymond. But no, because that's exactly what I was just waiting. That's why I giggled.
I think someone's dying.
Dude, what the hell? Is your neighbor arrested now? What's going on?
I don't know. I feel like it might be happening. But back to Khalif Raymond. So the last 2 weeks, 89% snaps. It's crazy.
It was quiet for a second.
I
Came
know.
back.
It's wild.
It turned the curve again.
Right. So last 2 weeks, 89% snaps, 81% snaps, 15 targets, 12 catches, over 140 yards, 150 yards actually. And he hasn't found the end zone, but that doesn't matter. Over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging around 13 fantasy points per game, 9.7 and then 17.6. Obviously had the big week this week, but week 8, he gets the Eagles, who just got shredded by Derek Carr. I know that Goff said that he wanted to get St. Brown involved in the offense and then just said, I meant Khalif. I'm throwing to Khalif. Do you have interest in Khalif, at least moving forward, knowing that he's probably the top wide receiver to have on this roster?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wish it was St. Brown.
Don't we all?
I think it should be, but I think we could get that through the end of this season. But right now it's Raymond. So I think he's very flex worthy with the target share. And again, I know it's the Lions. I know it's a dog shit team. It doesn't matter. Like the bad teams can still have great fantasy assets. I mean, especially in this banged up receiving core. In a deep league, I think you probably are starting Raymond this week.
Oh yeah.
In a normal 10-12 league, 18, definitely not. But you're considering him in the flex.
Yeah, which is crazy to think. I mean, I will say the one thing Raymond offers over St. Brown is speed. The kid's fast. So, okay, next guy, CJ Ozama. I know I wanted to say Akash on Twitter. Shout out Akash. I think he made a joke that he can't wait to see Ozama on waiver articles this week because what he's doing is fairly unsustainable. Most of his target share is accompanied with touchdowns. In his highest targeted game in week 4 against Jacksonville, 6 targets, he did score 2 touchdowns. This week he had 3 targets and scored 2 touchdowns. But we saw this with Dawson Knox. We're kind of seeing this with this Bengals team. They do like to target the tight end a few times a game, and when they do, it has good results, and we've been comfortable with Dawson Knox. CJ Uzomah right now is the 10 and 11 in PPR. So I guess maybe not a rest of season type of thing, but as a streamer for this week against the Jets, how do you feel about Uzomah?
I don't feel as comfortable, actually,
Okay.
because I don't expect the Jets to be able to put up points.
With Flacco? You sure?
I mean, I'm not saying Flacco's like inept and can't move the ball by any means because he's a veteran, big arm quarterback and a Super Bowl winner. So let's not like discredit him, but it's like they're clearly better than the Jets, and unless the Jets play absolutely lights out, I don't think there's great cause for these tons of deep shots, which is what I mean. He shouldn't have had that long touchdown. I mean, him covered by Marlon Humphrey basically falling down and then not tackling him, letting him get in the end zone basically was atrocious and should not have happened. Then, I mean, like that shouldn't happen. So you take away that big play, and he had a novice day at best. But I think that's what you're kind of going to rely on for the future is possibly 2 to 4 catches and a touchdown, which we've seen be fantasy relevant at the tight end position in the past, and I think it will be in the future. He's worth a pickup if you have nothing at tight end. I mean, there's teams that have Bob Tunyon that has just now paid off 1 week. I don't think that's necessarily sustainable. So maybe pick up him as a different option if you ignored picking up, as we said, for weeks, Schultz and Knox.
Yeah. I will say CJ Ozama already broke his season touchdown record by 2 touchdowns, which was his total from this weekend. So having a good year. Another Bengal, really quickly, not a guy that I really want to talk about for too long, but worth talking about, Samaje Perine. So Samaje Perine, he obviously was bolstered up by a long touchdown run in this game, but he went 11 for 52 with a touchdown, caught a 23-yard pass as well. Played on 48% of the snaps, and that's what I feel is significant. I took a flyer on Chris Evans, even knowing that Pirine was back. I just needed an upside play, and Chris Evans was rendered irrelevant. Pirine is good. Pirine seems to be involved in this offense. Again, it's the Jets. Maybe this is the game to stream him, but how do you feel about Pirine right now?
I think I just echo everything you just said. Like he's clearly not used more and or better than Mixon. He had a better game really than Mixon because of one big play. But however, 48% of snaps is nothing to sneeze at, especially with a lot of the somewhat committee approach we've seen from a lot of teams. So I think in a deep league he's worth a pickup. If you picked up Gio Bernard, I think you should probably pick him up. Or if you're picking up Rashad Penny, I think you should pick him up.
Yeah. The last 2 games he's played, 61% of snaps, 48, 11 carries, averaging over 5 yards a carry. So yeah, it's pretty good. Kenneth Gainwell, we're not going to talk about him. I said we would, but we're not going to because he should be your top waiver priority out of this group. Kenneth Gainwell is going to get the lion's share. He's good at football. Told you this 6 weeks ago. Hopefully you listened and you just can start him this week. But he's only rostered in 38% of leagues, so I felt like we had to add him. Next guy, another guy we talked about last week, Michael Gallup, 49% rostered. He was designated to come off the IR, which means that he will probably play this week. He might not play this week. He might just practice this week and play next week. I think he'll play this week though, because he's had quite a bit of time to recover.
Bye week too. They just had the bye week.
Very true. Randy, how would you prioritize Gage, Lazard, and Gallup?
Lazard, Gage, Gallup.
Okay.
But it's because there's still a lot to figure out with the Cowboys offense with everyone there. So, and especially week 1 before the Gallup injury, we didn't see a lot of tight end usage. We didn't really see a lot of Amari usage either, or running back usage. So, like, you add in all of those factors, which there's 2 tight ends and 2 running backs. I think he has the potential to be the biggest upside player for the season. However, I think it's just one of those like, well, I think people held on to him, and then he's probably not going to do anything for 2 weeks, and they'll drop him, and then he's a better pick up that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you there. All right, we put Rashad Penny on this list. 44% of snaps with Collins banged up. You can talk through that
quickly. Collins banged up. He also didn't look ultra efficient against the Saints' run defense, which the Saints' run defense is good, so that's okay. But with him banged up, him and Homer and Collins also on the field. The reason I put him on here is because with Carson out, he is the only one that I've seen them show the willingness to play 3 downs. Yeah. So because of that, I think he's worth a look. And I think DJ Dallas to an extent had that, but they're going to play Penny over DJ Dallas. So if Collins gets banged up again from tonight, or they're not sure, I think at a good matchup, which I don't know who they play, it could end up being a plus matchup for a deep league for Penny.
Yeah. Not either. Rashad Penny plays Jacksonville next week. So, seems like a pretty good plan. Yeah, that's good points. I'd probably prioritize Gainwell for sure and Pirine over him still. So
I think I would too. It's just something I wanted to mention.
Yeah, for sure. This is the mediocre, also above mediocre analysis that you're here for, guys. Speaking of which, trade deadline holds. So NFL trade deadline, right, Randy? This is
yes.
So
every fantasy league's different, so I don't know your trade deadlines.
It's very true. Yeah, some don't even have them. So the NFL trade deadline, November 2nd, 4 p.m. 3 guys Randy wanted to highlight that you should either hold or even maybe scoop up this week off of waivers.
They don't have high roster percentages. So it's the guys that are talked about. I mean, you would think I understand they probably got dropped this week because of the Bipocalypse. So a lot of teams just needed those spots. But the three guys that are talked about most right now in trades, trading for, not trading away, kind of thing. So Tua not involved. But
Right.
Marlon Mack from the Colts, only 21% owned currently, has looked good when he's in there. He has no use on this team. He will either be traded or cut, in my opinion, because I don't think they want to be. I don't see the Colts being cruel enough to not need him unless of a major injury, and then just being like, well, no one wanted you enough to trade a fifth round pick, so I guess you're sitting around. Because after this, I don't see him taking 7 carries a game. Like he's going to be, he's probably going to be a healthy scratch most weeks.
Yeah,
if he doesn't get traded. But if he does get traded, we've seen tons of upside from him. He's looked healthy and good so far. That's a good sign. Trade deadline, middle of next week. Not this week, middle of next week. Ronald Jones at 39% looked really good. I think had about almost 6.5 yards a carry, I believe, this week. Only 10 carries. But he is a very capable back. I don't trust anything Bruce Arians says. So I think if maybe there's teams trying to call up Marlon Mack and they want a fifth and they call the the Tampa Bay Bucks and offer a sixth and a rotational third string tackle, they'll probably take him. Ronald Jones just isn't used. The only way he'll be used on this team is if Leonard Fournette gets hurt.
Well, this was a showcase. They gave him 10 carries. He averaged over 6 a carry. He did fumble the ball late. Which it sucks. It does suck because it's a false narrative. All right, who's the last one?
And then no nickname added for this. Deshawn Watson. I almost added a few different nicknames through my head there quickly. But Deshaun Watson, it's ramping up the trade news. However real it is or not, or if it's just his agent putting out news. But we are to the extent of not only the Dolphins, but also Washington, also Carolina, and possibly other teams looking into this. So that is a very real thing. I think if you've held on to Watson, you cannot drop him until November 2nd. And if he's out there in free agency and you got the bench spot after, say you had 6 people in bye this week, now you don't give a shit about bye weeks. I think you hold on to him and these backs for the possibility of that being a top end option or trade bait after this week. Yeah. And the other thing with all 3 of these guys is after November 2nd, we know what's happening. So, like I said, Marlon Mack, Ronald Jones, they're either cut, which Ronald Jones probably wouldn't get cut, but he's either traded or he's back to what we are now and you cut him. Marlon Mack is either traded or cut, in my opinion, or if they refuse to let him go, you cut him. Who gives a shit? He's a handcuff at that point that you probably don't want to hold on to because Taylor's looked good and healthy. But Watson, it's a weird situation because there's either a point where he is traded and you obviously just won the lottery ticket and you don't even have to keep it. You could just trade it away immediately, not have to deal with him being on your team, not have to deal with him being rusty to start the year because he hasn't fucking practiced. Learning a playbook, you don't have to care about any of that. You just trade him away. Or you keep him and he's Deshaun Watson, or at least 80% of it, and you have a QB1. Or he doesn't get traded in time, and he works it out with the Texans to play because he wants to show people that he still has it even without playing, to not worry about it, because then his trade value is then thinking of for next year, and people will not enjoy him not playing a full year, as you could tell from all the rookies coming into the season that sat out the year because of COVID and got absolutely trashed for it. So
rightful or not, I mean, look at Jamar Chase and Sewell; they're playing well. But
exactly. So for that, and Michael Parsons for that matter,
true.
It's a weird thing where either he's traded or he's played or he's done. You cut him. Who gives? I don't see how that's a loss. I mean,
it's not.
You literally, all 3 of these guys, in my opinion, you were buying a $1 scratch off that has the chance you thought to maybe get you $2 maybe lose, but
Right.
you somehow won $5,000 off it, and you're the happiest person in that convenience store at 4 a.m. when you shouldn't be that happy.
Yeah.
Just saying, like,
Yeah.
I don't see why this is a bad thing. But I want them all in my team, and a lot of places I have Watson, a couple places I have Mack. I really just want the chance here.
I want Ronald Jones to get traded so I think he's talented. I want to see him on a different team. I really do. I hope the Falcons go get him because Mike Davis sucked this week. I'm sorry if you guys listened to my start of the week last week. It was Mike Davis. Randy was right. Randy called Cordero getting the bulk of the carries and the good work, and he did. So, but I would like to see Ronald Jones do that. Yeah.
He deserves it.
He does. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode of The Cut. Make sure you guys tune into The Cut Podcast Network. We are on your favorite podcast platform, but most of our shows do go live. Our Thursday Start Sit show and Thursday Night Football Preview is podcast only, so make sure you find that wherever. Just search The Cut FFB. You'll find us if you aren't already subscribed. We would love any 4 or 5 star reviews that you could leave. We very much appreciate it. It definitely helps us out. Shout out to Thrive Fantasy, who I did not mention in the middle of this episode. If you use promo code The Cut, your first time depositing with Thrive Fantasy, they will match your deposit up to $100. Very, very fun app. Prop betting. It's great. We have a lot of good advice that we give throughout the week. I had a decent Thrive week. I think I got my money back this week, but that was it. But overall, it's a great app, so make sure you guys go check that out. There is also a link in this episode of the podcast, even if you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube. Randy, anything else, dude?
No, I don't believe so. Nothing actual newsworthy.
Yeah. But remember, like I said, the college football cut this week is canceled. We'll be back next week, which will be kind of like a college football playoff like ranking show, I believe, because in 2 weeks, that's when the first college football playoff rankings come out. So other than that, remember, we will talk to you guys Thursday morning. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys then. Later.